He said, are you willing to help Norman? No matter how long it takes. Are you willing to help him, take him places, make him a part of your life? Are you really willing? I said, oh God, he's so unlovely sometimes. He said, are you willing to go out there in a coal shed and bring his coal in when he can't carry it anymore and put it in his old Stoker-matic? And I said, there's no light out there, Lord, and sometimes the snow in Illinois is deep. And he had me do so many things in that house that it was beginning to be a routine, back and forth across the street. And one night he challenged me with what I want to close with. He said, in the bathroom one night, I was standing there looking at his bathroom. I had remodeled his bathroom by now, fixed his faucet, I fixed his sink, I got him some new walls, and I put him a new Celotex ceiling in and had a light I was working on. And there was one thing in that bathroom that I just would not touch. It's over in a corner, and it's dirty. I just said, no. I said, now, God, sing in a choir? I'm singing choir. I love them. I love you all the time. But I do that. Travel all the country and sing and tell them about Jesus? Okay, Lord. Not that. He kept troubling me about it. I kept telling him no. I fought that thing. I said, no way. He said, all I want you to do is fix that ring and lid on the top of it. You see, if you look at it, and I did, it had the two bolts that held the ring into the ceramic part. One of those bolts had broken off, and if you accidentally bumped into it, it just swung down by that one bolt and hang beside the bowl. And he said, look over there. And I looked, and and I'm going to ask him one of these days. I'm not brash towards our Father, but I'm going to ask him. I don't think he'll mind. I'm going to ask him who put that there. In a plastic bag was a brand new ring and lid. All I had to do was take a bolt off, take the old one off, throw it away, put the new one on, put the bolts on, and it was finished, but I wasn't going to touch it. Sat over in front of my television. One night, he troubled me so bad I couldn't watch television. I finally turned around to Carmel, my wife, and I just said, I'm not going to do it. She was looking at the Sears catalog or something. She looked at me like... I couldn't stand it. About an hour later, I went up and got my coveralls out of the pantry, and I put them on, put the collar up. I pulled the sleeves down, found me some gloves that came down over the sleeves. She laughed and told me later if I'd have had an operating mask like a surgeon, I'd have had that on. I got my toolbox, and I crept across the street real late, over into Norman's bathroom, got the tools out, started working on that thing. And that one bolt that was left, I just couldn't... I tried to get that boxing wrench on it, just wouldn't. And if I was God and a guy was finally willing to do something like this, I'd just have him touch that thing. It'd come right off, wouldn't you? But it wouldn't do it. And finally I tried to get as close as I could to it without touching it. You know, watch it. Watch it. And I'll tell you something, you got to hug one of them things to work on them, you know. And I just couldn't get it off. And so I know we're in a church, and I'm gonna trust God. He's got a good sense of humor, because here's what I finally had to do. It's true. I had to get down on that old filthy floor so I could see up under that thing, and I crawled, and I took that wrench, and I finally got it on that nut, and I moved it a little bit, and old rust and dirt just hit me right in the eye like that. I said, this ain't the 700 Club. This ain't PTL. And I began to have one of Jim's pity parties he was talking about. And the Spirit of the Lord took care of it. He spoke to me and said, right there on the floor, he said, when you do it unto the least of these, you do it unto me. It changed me. I didn't care if anybody noticed. I didn't want any money. I didn't want any acclamation for it. I didn't care anymore. I just began to see when it said, I'll give my body to be burned. But if I have not love, it's for nothing. I began to understand that word, loving your neighbor as yourself. Went back home and I said, God, what else will you have for me? He said, son, get in your car and take those songs that I've given you all over the country and leave them at radio stations. I think maybe he thought maybe I can trust him, maybe use him a little bit. And I went in a car all over the radio stations, and he opened up television, and suddenly record sales came in, and then doors opened to speak all over the country. But he never allowed any of that to happen in my life. Not the first bit of it. No matter how much I agonized with him for 35 years. No matter how much I hollered and said, why can't you use me, God? Why am I having to wait? Until he had taught me to love my neighbor as myself. Through my friend, my neighbor named Norman. He opened the doors, and today, one of the favorite things that I get to tell around the country, if it be in Indonesia or Holland or America, is the story of how God used the old man named Norman to teach me to love my neighbor as myself.
The truth is, Norman is in heaven today.
That's the truth.
And you were with him when he died. You continued your relationship with him right to the end, didn't you?
Yes, he spent his last 10 years in a nursing home, but it was necessary. He fell on the ice and snow and damaged his leg, the interior blood vessels and what have you. And so just to keep him alive, they put him in a nursing home. And for 10 years, I would visit him in that nursing home. And this last April, when he quietly, beautifully went to be with the Lord, I wasn't sure I was going to get to be there. I was on a ministry trip lasting about 10 days or so. I'd call home every day 3 or 4 times. Carmel, my wife, would give me an update on him. I got home, and the last 2.5 hours of his life I got to spend with him. Carmel and I were at his bedside. In fact, as he began to breathe much more slowly, peaceful the entire time, I experienced the most amazing presence of the Lord that I think I'd ever experienced in my life. It was an odd time, because off in the distance there in the nursing home, I heard a sitcom playing on television in someone's room that had it turned loudly. Probably they couldn't hear well. That sitcom was full of canned laughter as he was breathing his last breaths. So I just stroked his arm and I said, I love you. I said, tell Jesus hello for me. I didn't know if he could hear me, because I knew he was down to the last. This that I'm going to tell you will be the most difficult part of what I have to tell you. Out of his right eye, that eye alone, one tear ran down his cheek. I knew he'd heard.